Today is Tuesday, December 6th. As a reminder, this is a public meeting and is being recorded. For those of you calling in, please ensure that your line is muted. Thank you. First, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner Boyce.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Last week on December 1st, we observed World's AIDS Day, which is an opportunity for people around the world to unite in the fight against HIV, show support for people living with HIV, and remember those who have died from AIDS-related illnesses. 38 million people are living with HIV worldwide, and the virus is responsible for more than 35 million deaths since it was first identified in 1984. Scientific advances have greatly improved the treatment options and prognosis for many who are living with the disease. But there is still a vital need to raise awareness, raise funds for research, and fight prejudice. For local information about AIDS and other sexually transmitted infections, visit the Sexual Health and Wellness Program at Columbus Public Health at columbus.gov/public health. Also last week was the International Day of Persons with Disabilities on December 3rd. This recognition Day celebrates the ways that we are all different. It is an opportunity to promote inclusion and accessibility in all places for people with disabilities. Did you know that an estimated 46% of people over 60 are living with a disability? 1 in 5 women will experience a disability at some point in their life, and 1 in 10 children have a disability. People with disabilities are among those who most often experience discrimination and violence, in addition to the day-to-day barriers they encounter. Franklin County residents support an excellent resource for people with developmental disabilities through the levy-funded Franklin County Board of Developmental Disabilities. More information on their programs and services can be found at fcbdd.org. This is an issue that is important to the Franklin County Board of Commissioners, and we are always working to promote inclusion and accessibility through county government and county facilities. And then I would just add to that, there is a bill, I can't remember the name of my bill, but it's currently in the Senate. It passed the House, and it is parental rights for the disabled. I was made aware during my time in the legislature that it was brought to me by the National Federation of the Blind, but then Disability Rights Ohio and other groups reached out to support the bill, and so we changed it from parental rights for the blind to parental rights for the disabled, because as was noted in my comments, those who are differently able are discriminated against even in the justice system when it comes to the parental rights, and they have had their children taken away and then had to fight custody to get them back. And so that bill shifts the burden of proof when there's a divorce or custody battles to the person who is making the claim that the other person that has the disability is unfit to be a parent, instead of the person how it has been in the past, the person who has the disability, the burden is on them to prove that they are an able parent. And so we just thought that was unfair in other advocacy groups. So when you get a chance, you can look up that bill and support it. Again, it's in the Senate. It already passed the House, and it is parental rights for the disabled. And finally, I want to take a moment to acknowledge tomorrow as Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. On December 7th, 1941, the Japanese military attacked an American naval vessel without warning at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and marked the entrance of the United States into World War II. On that day, 81 years ago, 2,403 American service members and civilians were killed. More than 1,000 more were injured. 188 American aircraft were destroyed, and 15 U.S. ships were damaged or sunk. President Roosevelt called it a date which will live in infamy, and the U.S. would go on to experience 3.5 years of war in which more than 16 million Americans served in the armed forces and more than 1 million were killed or wounded. Flags at the county buildings will be flying at half-staff tomorrow in remembrance of the courageous people who served our country. And if you haven't had an opportunity to in Hawaii, there is a memorial that I would encourage everyone to go see. All right, so next we're on to the agenda. If I can get approval of the minutes for the November 29th, 2022 general session.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Thank you. The minutes have been approved.
We are going to skip the clerk of courts and come back and start with the drainage engineer. That's fine. I'll let him decide.
Resolution number 90222. Resolution approving a ditch maintenance petition for Morrison Farms East, Section 6, Jefferson Township, Franklin County, Ohio.
Good morning, Commissioners, Administration, and guests. My name is Cornell Robertson, Franklin County Engineer and Franklin County Drainage Engineer. With me today are Abby Obert and Jim Ramsey of our Drainage Department and Nick Soulis of our Government Affairs Department. Nick and I will be presenting the resolutions, and Abby and Jim will help us with the drainage resolutions as needed. This first resolution is for a subdivision in the northeast part of the county in Jefferson Township, east of Wagner Road, south of Havens Road, and is known as Morrison Farms East, Section 6. The subdivision covers 13 acres, has 29 lots in the petition, and this resolution establishes a ditch maintenance petition for drainage infrastructure built as part of the subdivision and for its maintenance into the future. It is important that such ditch maintenance petitions are established for new subdivisions before lots are sold, so we typically set these up at the time of the subdivision final plat approval. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 902-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Resolution number 90222 has been adopted.
Next, we have the engineer.
Resolution number 90322. HDR Engineering Incorporated Consulting Engineers appointed to assist the Franklin County Engineer by providing general engineering services in the amount of $100,000.
This resolution is a design contract with HDR Engineering for general engineering services. HDR is a local engineering firm that we have worked with in the past. We utilize the qualifications-based selection process and respectfully request your approval.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 903-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Resolution number 90322 has been adopted. Resolution number 90422. The Franklin County Engineer is authorized to use county forces during 2023 for maintenance and repair projects involving county roads and bridges within limits established by the Ohio Revised Code.
Good morning, Commissioners. Nick Soulis, Government Affairs Liaison for Engineer Cornell Robertson. Commissioners, this next resolution would authorize the County Engineer's Office pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 5543.19 to utilize our own forces in completing bridge and road work. The current dollar amount limits established by the Ohio Department of Transportation are $30,516 per mile for roads and $101,702 per bridge. And pending any questions, we ask for your approval to allow us to continue this work in '23.
If there are no, pardon me, if there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 904-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Resolution number 90422 has been adopted. Resolution number 90522. Resolution authorizing the Franklin County Engineer to enter into agreements with farmers to leave corn stalks in the ground as snow fence barriers in the amount of $20,000.
Commissioners, this next resolution would authorize our 23rd year of implementing this program of working with farmers to leave corn stalks in their fields at the end of the growing season in order to prevent snow drifts from coming onto our county roadways. It's very economical. It's been working for the past 23 years, so we propose to continue it. We would be paying farmers $50 per acre for leaving the stalks in their fields, and we are anticipating approximately 330 acres over the course of the 2022-23 winter season. So pending any questions, we ask for your approval.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 905-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting, Commissioner Boyce.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley.
Yes.
Resolution number 90522 has been adopted. Resolution number 90622, resolution awarding contract and approving contract bond to MP Dory Company for the 2023 Franklin County Traffic Signal Maintenance Contract in the amount of $697,720.
Commissioners, this resolution seeks to award a contract for signal maintenance with MP Dory. This project, or this contract was competitively bid with a bid opening on November 1 of this year. MP Dory would provide traffic signal maintenance as well as emergency response to traffic signal issues should they arise throughout the year. Pending any questions, we ask for your approval.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 906-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting, Commissioner Boyce.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley.
Yes.
Resolution number 90622 has been adopted. Resolution number 90722, resolution awarding contract and approving contract bond to Shelley and Sands Incorporated for the Reynoldsburg New Albany Road Havens Corner Road roundabout in the amount of $6,331,456.11.
Commissioners, this resolution would award a contract and approve the contract bond for Shelley and Sands, Inc. For the RNA at Havens Road Roundabout project. This project is funded in part with OPWC dollars, ODOT safety funding, and federal dollars, and is a collaborative project with Jefferson Township in northeast Franklin County. It seeks to upgrade an existing stop-controlled intersection with a modern roundabout. The project will also rehabilitate and widen the bridge that's over Blacklit Creek. Pending any questions, we ask for your approval.
All right, if there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 907-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting, Commissioner Boyce.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley.
Yes.
Resolution number 90722 has been adopted. Resolution number 90822, approval of the Morrison Farms East Section 6 subdivision plat, Jefferson Township, Franklin County, Ohio.
This resolution is for the subdivision known as Morrison Farms East, Section 6. It was the subdivision of our very first resolution this morning. It is in the northeast part of the county in Jefferson Township, east of Wagner Road and south of Havens Corners Road. With this resolution, I'm asking you to approve and sign the final plat for Section 6, creating 30 lots on 13 acres. The Mylar has been delivered to the clerk for you all to sign, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, if there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 908-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting, Commissioner Boyce.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley.
Yes.
Resolution number 90822 has been adopted.
Thank you. Next up, Clerk of Courts, and then we'll come back to Board of Commissioners.
Resolution number 90122, resolution authorizing a contract with Huntington National Bank to provide banking services for the Franklin County Clerk of Courts of Common Pleas in the amount of $250,000.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sean Reeder, Fiscal Officer for the Clerk of Courts. Today's resolution authorizes a 3-year contract with Huntington National Bank. Under the guidance of the Franklin County Purchasing Department and the Prosecutor's Office, an RFP for banking services was competitively bid in accordance with 307.86 of the Ohio Revised Code. 4 bids were received and independently evaluated by 5 staff members from the Clerk's Fiscal and Audit Title Division. Huntington National Bank was identified as submitting the most comprehensive proposal that best meets the operational needs of the Clerk's Legal and Audit Title Divisions. The initial term of the contract is effective December 10th, 2022, and it runs through December 9th, 2025. The contract does include 2 one-year optional extensions. Pending any questions, the Clerk's Office respectfully requests approval of Resolution 901-22.
Move approval of resolution 90122.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting, Commissioner O'Grady.
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley.
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce.
Abstain.
Resolution number 90122 has been adopted with Commissioner Boyce's noted abstention.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Love all that Steelers swag in the background.
We're competing against those Browns for last place.
No, you're competing for last place. We're still in the playoff hunt.
Have a
Wait,
great
what?
day. Thank
Wait,
you.
what?
Next up, we have Board of Commissioners.
Madam President, there's a public hearing.
Okay, we have a public hearing for Resolution 909-22. Can the clerk please read the public hearing?
Public hearing to consider the initial feasibility of the improvement of the ODOT Argabright Drainage Improvement, Pleasant Township, Franklin County, Ohio.
I would like to open up the public hearing for this resolution. I will now turn this over to the clerk.
The public hearing is now open. For those providing testimony, please rise to be sworn in, whether you're participating virtually or in person, please, if you plan to give testimony. Okay, and if you all raise your right hands, please. Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge? If so, say I do. I do. Thank you. And now I will go ahead and we'll begin with the online participants. If you are going to speak in the Pleasant Township room, if you could please come directly in front of the camera so we can hear you loud and clear in the room here. Please state your name, your first and last name, as well as your address or parcel number.
Hello, my name is Joseph Lee. I live at 5520 London Groveport Road. We are about to talk about a lot of numbers. None of them are real. We know that the estimate for this project is $2.1 million, but this is just an estimate. We know that I'm sorry, it takes me a minute to get going here. We know that most of this money is just an estimate. We know this estimate is the most this project can possibly cost. We also know that ODOT is going to pay approximately 1/3 of the cost of the construction of this project, but they're not going to pay for any of the other costs. This amount comes to approximately $610,000. This leaves 26 families to pay everything else. That number comes to almost $1,504,000. I'm sorry, I wish I could do this better. We have yet to talk about the two most terrifying numbers. How much is each family going to be forced to pay? And how much is each family going to be able to pay? As for the first number, we are going to be, again, forced to pay this number. And based on the estimate, this average per family is going to be approximately $57,736 per family. We are told some of them will pay some less, and some will pay more, and some will pay much more. To decide how much each of us is going to pay there's going to be an algorithm used which is so complex that it would give Einstein nightmares. Nowhere in this program does it take into effect how much the families can afford to pay. Why not? A month ago, actually, in this entire process, nobody ever asked that question. How much can these families afford? We are talking about $57,000 per family. Okay? A month ago, I sent each of you a letter and to ask you about this question. I hope you had a chance to read it. I talked about my wife, who is a shut-in, and that both of us are on fixed incomes. Between our medical bills and inflation, we are truly living paycheck to paycheck. And I talked about the fact that there is an element here called the human factor. This is the most important role that you play. You are to determine how much this project is worth. But somebody needs to take into effect the human factor. If this project goes through, my wife and I will be crushed. We will not be able to survive this project. We will lose our home. This is not a maybe or a possibly. This is going to happen. You know this happens. You know because you've seen it. You have been through these things in the past. We will become casualties of this project. There are others in this group that are going to suffer the same fate. We are not a group of 100 homes. We are not a complex. We are just 26 families. We are a group of small homes. We are a group of farmers. We are a group of retired people. We are a group of fixed income people. We don't have $57,000 to spend on this project. In this case, you are the financial advisors for all of us. We don't get a vote. We don't get an option. If we can't pay that money, we will lose our homes. You have to make this choice for us. We are not allowed to. We have lived here, most of us, 30, 40, and some 50 years. This flooding has been going on for most of that time. Now, all of a sudden, it has to be fixed, but we are the ones that have to pay for it. Why now? You know that people have lost their homes in the past. You know it's going to happen again. But not on this scale. We're not just talking about two people here. We're not just talking about my wife and I. We are talking about a number of people that live in this community. There'll be other people to talk. They'll be telling you about the same things. But the seriousness of this is big, beyond the big complexes you've been talking about today. We're talking about $2.1 million. We are talking about casualties on a percentage that is beyond the norm.
Thank you, Mr.
The
Lee.
reality is you won't be the ones losing the money. It will be us. Please, please understand. There's a human factor here that goes beyond the money. We ask that you take that into consideration and that you understand that we need your help to stop this project. Please, please help us.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Appreciate your testimony. Are there any other representatives in the room that would like to provide testimony? As a reminder, please state your name and address or parcel number.
Hi, everybody. My name is Barbara Sims, and I live with my husband at 5532 London Groveport Road, and we have lived there for the last 30 years. And I just want to, again, speak up for those of us who are retired. We have spent our entire working lives looking for ways to save money, build up our 401s and our savings, so when we retire, we could have a somewhat comfortable retirement. And we have worked hard, spent many years doing without, just so we could build up this nest egg. And sure, there's going to be things that's come up, but now with the potential of having to pay $50,000 over the next 15 years, to say the very least, this is very scary and disheartening. And with out of control inflation facing us now, this is a very foreboding prospect. We are not Powell, we're not Dublin, our funds are not unlimited. And this is not only unfair, but heartless to take thousands of dollars from our savings and putting us through this whole entire process. I have spent many sleepless hours worrying about this, and I'm sure others have as well. The flooding usually takes care of itself in a day, and I'm sure there's a much simpler plan that can come up to achieve the same goal without spending millions. A project does not always have to be complex and expensive to work. This is not a life or death situation, and spending this kind of money will create possible hardships for many in our community. It just all boils down to this. We cannot afford this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Sims. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hi there. I need to sit down because of my neuropathy. My name is Kenneth Yarnow. I live at 4688 London Groveport Road. I'm just coming into this whole project a little bit late. I apologize. But when I heard about this project, we have flooding issues in our properties. We are on the far east side, I believe, of this drainage area. And I think this project is being developed without all the knowledge that you need to have to make a good decision. For 2 years, I've been working with ODOT on the drainage situation in front of our home and in every place east to 4848 London Groveport Road. We have a state tile that is obstructed, I'll say 98% obstructed. It appears like the state has said, well, we're not replacing that tile until 2028, I think I got them back to 2026. But there are markings on the road now that lead me to believe that they may be doing it soon. All of the water from 4848 east flows to the east to a retention pond on Young Road. So I wanted to make sure, number one, that our properties weren't involved in this, because of course, if we were being charged for work that doesn't need to be done because our tile goes the opposite direction. I hope you can understand that. But some of the knowledge that I've had because of all the flooding issues with our area is that when the farmer or landowner went in and tiled acreage on the north side of London Groveport Road, they cut the tile that drains many, many acres and many homes in that area. I believe it took them a couple years to get the issue remedied, but they finally, I saw where they went in and put a new tile in. I was told by ODOT that the tile people denied cutting any tiles, but obviously they did. I believe it went to the lawyers. They finally got it remedied and the repairs were done. The pictures that I saw as of last night of flooding in the area were taken when we had the massive flooding in Central Ohio that everybody was flooded, okay? The tile line issue that the farmer cut created issues, I think, for almost 2 years. And once it was remedied, everything was back to normal, okay? I grew up on farm in Delaware County. I know about farming and tiling. We used, of course, clay tile back then. But plastic tile is so quick, easy, and cheap to put in. A lot of farmers are doing it. So what I'm seeing is that the farmers in there, everybody's tiling, they're increasing the amount of water that's going by all these folks' homes and creating the issue. These people here that are speaking, trying to save their homes, are not the ones creating the problems. It's the farmers that are adding to the problem. There's nowhere for their tiles to go, okay? So you're punishing all these people and making them pay for what the farmers want. Farmers want to drain their land so they can increase their crops output and everything, but that's not fair to punish these people for the profit of others. Again, 2 years now I've been working on my project. I've come to the point where I've bought pumps and I actually pump water past the obstruction for 2 days on account of ODOT. ODOT's paying, my understanding, for all that tile along there. So, but again, we're not included in it, but the cause of all this flooding are the farmers and their tiling issues. So if you have any questions, I'd feel free to answer anything. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any remaining members in that room that would like to give testimony at this time before we move to the folks in person that has not been spoken about, the testimony that's been already given?
Hi, my name is Greg Pell. I live at 5574 London Grove Port Road. We've lived there for 24 years. I've had my driveway completely washed out 3 times. Nobody came to give us any help to resolve it. We did it ourselves. We didn't depend on our neighbors to fix anything for us. And I have water coming from across the road, down the stream, and from my backyard into my yard. Nobody's worried about that. They came around to have petitions signed. Nobody knocked on my door, but I was there the whole time. I'm retired now. I have a degree in forest industrial management. I know a lot about water and drainage. And I think this project should be diverted to the people that are going to get the benefit from it. And I think it's going to be, I'm not saying any names, but the farmers are going to benefit by getting better crops. They should pay for this production. So that's my thoughts, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And at this time, I will move to the folks inside the room here. Mr. Hughes, I believe you're up first. I'm sorry, excuse.
Oh, you dropped.
You want him to go? Excuse me, Mr. Hughes, I apologize. Before you go, we'll go ahead and hear from the engineer's office first, and then we'll go to testimony. Thank you. Mr. Engineer?
Thank you again, Cornell Robertson, Franklin County Engineer and Franklin County Drainage Engineer. This hearing is for the ODOT Argobrite drainage improvement in the southwest part of the county in Pleasant Township, east of Darby Dale, along State Route 665 between Lambert Road and US 62. The initial ditch petition was filed by ODOT and 14 other property owners within the watershed on July 13, 2022. The petition was filed to help address flooding conditions that exist within the right-of-way along State Route 665 and on private property. The viewing was held on October 12, 2022, and today was the initial hearing date for the proposed improvements. The purpose of today's hearing is to consider the initial report that my staff has prepared and to consider the testimony, both written and oral, in favor of and opposed to the proposed improvements. After all due consideration, if you find that, number 1, the project is necessary, number 2, the project is conducive to the public welfare, and 3, generally, the benefits of the project outweigh the cost of the project, then I would ask that you direct my office to proceed with the preparation of plans, specifications, and schedule of assessments. Please note that this hearing and resolution that will follow does not obligate the county to actually undertake any improvements. Rather, this merely allows the county engineer to prepare the plans necessary to determine the estimated cost and benefits accruing to property owners. Abby Obert of our Drainage Department will present our initial report to you, and we will be happy to answer any questions that you all or others have.
Madam President, may I ask the engineer a question before she proceeds? in terms of options, it's always a legitimate concern for a resident to be concerned about the cost and how it affects their ability to pay. How does that work in terms of the options that we give the residents to pay? It's not a lump sum, obviously, but what's the finance structure, and what are the options in terms of maximizing the minimal cost to those homeowners, like over time?
The property owners could choose to pay a lump sum early on, or the payments could be spread out over 15 years. And Abby will have that in her presentation. We'll be able to describe that in more and better detail, but that's the gist of it.
Madam President?
Yes.
Is the 15 years statutory? Is that something that's set by statute, or is that just our policy?
That's in the statute.
That's in the statute. So just to be clear to the residents that the state law dictates the length of, or the duration of the schedule to pay back. So we don't have the ability to make it over 30 years. We don't have the ability to, change that, correct? I just want to be very clear about that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Robertson. If we could go to the next slide, Brittany, please. So, as he stated, my name is Abby Obert, the Drainage Project Engineer Intern for the Franklin County Drainage Engineer's Office. So we're going to go through the findings of the first report, and then if you have any questions during this presentation, feel free to interrupt. Otherwise, we can take questions at the end as well. Next. So we are at the first hearing today, and we have filed the preliminary report, which you have with you. This includes the preliminary cost estimate, a statement of feasibility, and a cost-benefit analysis. Landowners may testify at this first hearing, and then at the end of this hearing, we'll ask the board to vote whether to proceed or dismiss the petition. If you vote to proceed, this does not mean that it's a vote for construction. It's just a vote to begin preparing the plans and the final report. So at this time, we haven't done a detailed topographic survey. We haven't made any detailed engineering plans or designs. It's just voting to proceed into that next step. And after this hearing, no changes may be made to the petition or the scope of the project. So a little bit of background on this project. It is located in Pleasant Township on London Groveport Road. The watershed acreage is 270 acres. It's primarily agricultural with rural residential lots. And the petition was actually filed by the Ohio Department of Transportation on July 13th of 2022 to improve drainage within this watershed, specifically surrounding London Groveport Road. So this is a map of the watershed for this area. As you can see, there is a lot of agricultural, but mixed in with rural residential. And again, it's 270 acres. So existing conditions of this area, there is a lot of extensive flooding. As resident owners have mentioned before, a lot of driveways are overtopped and washed out from the flooding in the area. There's a lot of inadequate drainage for homes, home sewage treatment systems, and the agricultural fields. And then it also leads to a lot of holes and soil erosion caused by the broken tile within the agricultural fields. So these are just more pictures. Yes.
Madam President. Abby, how far west of Swaco is this on 665?
How far west of what?
Of Swaco, the Solid Waste Authority of Central?
I'm not sure.
It is,
Less than a mile?
Approximately.
it is maybe 2.5 miles.
Okay, so it's pretty significantly west of Swaco. Okay.
All right, so these are just some more pictures that we took from drone photography about the soil erosion in the agricultural fields. So next we have a cost estimate, which has been brought up multiple times. So it is important to make sure that these are preliminary, and these have been done with the absence of the survey and detailed engineering design. So we try to make this as conservative as possible, as to not make it so that when it actually comes time for assessment, so it's not something.
I have a question.
Yes.
So this is a conservative estimate, or?
Well, this would be close to the top, the max.
The max, oh, okay. And so if we moved forward, would there be a more, like a topography report or in a more detailed assessment that that would give us a better understanding of the project estimate and what the cost would be for each homeowner, because not all homeowners would be assessed the same, right? So the next step would provide
Correct.
us more, okay.
Yeah, so a vote to proceed here would lead us to do the survey and the detailed engineering design, and with the design would come that PS&E, the engineering cost estimate, and that will be based on current bid prices, and with that will come in a schedule of assessments that will have each resident, and going with the algorithm described above, it includes the amount of land within the watershed, the benefit received from the project, amongst other things that are included to calculate an individual residential assessment.
Okay.
So
Yes.
my next question would be for I guess for anybody on the team that can answer, how many homes are impacted by this, the total number?
The total number of residential parcels is 27. The total number of parcels in general is 38.
Thank you.
So, Madam President, so this process, we vote to proceed with the initial cost estimates, and then you all do your process. Then what happens? Where at what point does the project start? And so
So-
do you come back to the county? We don't do these on a regular basis for me to remember the process. But then do you all come back and we do another vote?
Yes.
Or is it we do?
So after this, we'll go into our detailed design, and then when that is all complete, we'll come back with the engineering plans, a final report, and the schedule of assessments for each parcel, and then we'll come back for a final hearing. And at that time, it would be another vote to either approve the project or dismiss the petition.
Madam President, and then have we, and this is probably a question for the engineer, have we ever had a scenario where, what are our options when it comes to the affordability, or are there elements that the county can finance that reduce the costs? You know, if there are right-of-way improvements, or is that part of what ODOT covers? You know, I guess what I'm asking is, have we maximized the minimum costs to the residents? Or will that be a part of the assessment, the analysis that you do?
Yeah, so for this project specifically, Ohio Department of Transportation will be directly assessed for improvements within the right-of-way of London Grove Port Road. Unfortunately, the county engineer's office cannot work directly on private property for problems. However, the Ohio Revised Code 6131 allows us to make those improvements if it directly benefits multiple property owners.
So I think what I hear you saying is, I mean, because I am sensitive to the overburden of cost to the residents. You know, even when there is clearly legitimate drainage issues that have to be addressed one way or another, that it's a lot, you know. And so I'm just trying to think of what our options are in terms of giving them a little bit of relief in costs. And I feel like what you're telling me is, until we know what the actual costs are, it's hard to even look at options. But even then, we still have limited possibilities.
Don't we have programs, and maybe you're asking, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, if there are programs, I know the auditor's office and the treasurer's office, I guess once your assessment comes back, says what the financial impact would be, and if there was still an inability to pay or a burden on payment opportunities for the county to support the homeowners with the assessment with the tax implications that they would have.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically what I'm asking.
Yeah.
For you. And Madam President, if I could take a point of personal privilege, I want to just recognize the students from Northland High School here and their teacher, Tom Gibson.
Hey, my wife's alma mater.
Yeah, that's
Go
right,
Vikings.
that's right. And
Thanks for
so
coming,
grateful
guys.
to have these young people with us. They come here every year. And I think they're headed over to the courts. So hopefully I get to see you, Mr. Gibson, later, and be great. Text me, and we'll figure it out. Okay, all right. Thanks. Good to see you, students. Sorry, Madam President.
No, I appreciate that. Go
I had a
ahead.
question.
Commissioner, I'm also sensitive. My parents own a house with a drainage, in an area with a drainage issue like this in Brown Township. I know we've discussed before. So this is obviously something that's, of great sensitivity to me as well. But, and I don't recall us ever necessarily finding some relief for doing that on a project in the past since I've been here. But I do know that we have, on at least one occasion since I've been here, refused to move a project forward because the residents didn't want us to.
If
I may, I'll go ahead.
I just
got
want to
a
make a
question.
point of clarification under the law. So the direct question from Commissioner Boyce is whether the county has authority under the law to contribute to a project. And the answer to that direct question is yes. If you wanted to reduce the ultimate cost at a later date when this comes back, you do have that authority under the law. Of course, you would have to determine the budgetary constraints that exist, but you do have the legal authority to make that decision. Right now, your vote, in a very narrow sense, is merely to, in more simpler terms, get more information, go forward with the plans, get the specifications, and understand the project and its ultimate assessment to the residents. That's where you are at right now with this vote. The final vote will be knowing that information, and then if the county decides, the Board of Commissioners, that you want to contribute, that can be made part of the ultimate resolution.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner Grady, Madam President. To that point, so the 15-year duration that was referenced earlier, if the county were to, I don't want to use the word subsidize, but let's say we were to loan the project some resources, and those residents would be assessed to pay that after the 15 years. Is that can we do that legally? Like, so basically, we would contribute to the project, but the residents would have to pay that money back, but after the 15 years of direct assessment. And so that essentially would give us a longer duration to split the cost up for residents. So they're still paying back the assessment, but over a longer period of time, which makes it a smaller burden to them in the short term.
So I understand your question. You want to know whether or not the period of time for payback of the assessment based on county contribution can be extended. Is that past 15 years? In other words, have a 30-year assessment, for instance.
Basically. I mean, I guess what I'm saying, so they would have their assessment would be for the 15-year duration, and then whatever part the county contributed, they would be required to pay back as well after that initial 15 years. Then that clock would kick in on that county contribution. I know this is getting a little complicated, but like Commissioner Gray said, I mean, it's just we're trying to figure out what our options are, and none of this may not work. But I just want to know what the options are, what our capacity
We'll look at
is.
that. I think I understand your question. You want to contribute as a loan to the residents versus a direct subsidy that
Correct.
is paid in full.
Correct.
Okay, I'll have to
And I'm
look
just
further.
asking if it's an option. I'm
Yep.
not suggesting it. I'm just asking if it's an option to help relieve the burden of cost. Because we don't want to put people in a situation where they lose their home because they can't afford it because of assessment. I mean, that is definitely contrary to what we're trying to accomplish here. So
So if I
sensitive
might,
to that.
one, I think that obviously this is, the purpose of this is for us to decide to move forward with the assessment of, what needs to happen here. And I think we ought to, my opinion is we ought to absolutely do that because we need to know what the situation is. I'm interested in and would be interested in then from that point, once we have all the information that we need, the engineer's office has all the information that it needs, then coming back and sitting down and figuring out what our options are.
That's a good point.
What it is that we as Franklin County government can do to help the residents that live in this area, to figure this out. Having grown up, or partially grown up, in an area with my parents dealing with this same type of an issue every single year, and you know, some years it's in the springtime, some years it's in the middle of the summer, some years it's in the middle of the winter, where you've got an ice cap over your property half the winter. Having watched my parents struggle with that, my dad planting willow trees, you know, thinking that was going to soak up all the water in his front yard, when it never did. You know, my dad bringing in you know, topsoil year after year after year, thinking that he was going to be able to mound up his property so that the water wouldn't be on his property, and all it would do was just transplant it to the rest of his property. You know, doing this, you know, consistently, I'm certainly sensitive to this issue, and so I'd like to see what we can do. And at the same time, being a homeowner, as a lot of us are, you know, certainly wouldn't want to be then burdened with, you know, an assessment that you know, folks just can't seem to afford. And so, you know, want to move this forward. I personally would like to see this move forward so that we understand what it is that we're all dealing with, and then try to figure out what it is that we can as county government can be able to be helpful with, without potentially setting precedent into the future, so that, you know, we're stuck in this situation again and again and again. So I don't want to do that as well. But you know, folks in Pleasant Township, I grew up that way, having been a West Side guy that went to Bishop Reedy High School. I know lots and lots of people that grew up in your part of the county, and so I've been out there most of my life, and I know the neighborhood, know the area, and you know, would certainly want to see what we couldn't do to be of assistance. That's what we do in Franklin County. Every resident every day is on the back wall for no reason. So,
Madam President, I would
Yes.
say I agree 100% with Commissioner Grady. Well said, well stated. I mean, we've got to go forward to have a full scope of the information that allows to make a decision, and to me, that's where we are in the process. And then in the meantime, we'll just ask that as that information comes back, the BOC be equipped with all the possible tools that we can have to support the residents. And I agree with Commissioner Gray. We to the residents, we have to be very careful when we make decisions that we don't set a precedent
Absolutely.
that changes what we do forever and creates, because if we do it for one circumstance, then we have to consider it every single time for every circumstance, and so I totally agree with Commissioner O'Grady. And that's what makes these decisions so tough. Our goal is not to burden the residents, but to unburden them with those water and drainage issues that can be far more devastating and impacting than even the cost. But it sometimes can be a double-edged sword in terms of the cost. So Commissioner O'Grady, I think, said it all very well, and I agree with that too, in terms of moving forward. But really doing what we can to look at our options to help the folks out there.
Yeah, I would hope in the final, if we vote to move forward today, that in the final phase, that there is information on, if we decided not to move forward, what is the impact for London Groveport Road and the right-of-way for ODOT? Like, how do we, like, what are our options? What could still proceed, if anything, or if not, this is my first time in this situation, so I'm not clear on what happens when you vote to not move forward to do the whole project. But if ODOT filed the petition because it impacts the right-of-way, then what happens to that also? Am I making sense? Does that make sense? Okay, all right.
President
so
Crowley.
can I make one more statement? That when I brought up the idea of not setting precedent, I'm not 100% opposed to setting precedent, as long as when we set precedent, that makes sense. You know, I don't want to say that I won't be willing to set a precedent, as long as that precedent is something that we can live with into the future. You know, generally speaking, we don't want to set precedent.
I just don't like
But
tying the hands of future.
That's right. That's right. and
commissioners in
we've-
this
For the
position.
almost 15 years I've been here, we stay away from tying the hands of future boards of commissioners. But every once in a while, something comes up where you say, this is worth tying the hands of future boards of commissioners.
President
Hadn't
Crowley.
happened much. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Administrator Wilson.
President Crowley, Commissioner Boyce, Commissioner O'Grady. Speaking of precedent, this board, during my tenure, has made exceptions in some extreme situations, like the prohibitive costs associated with sewer hookups. We've used a combination of community development block grant dollars with general fund dollars to help residents get hooked up to water and sewer. You all make an annual investment to the drainage engineer for stormwater improvements, just short of $2 million each year. And that is to meet environmental standards. So this isn't uncharted waters. Of course, we will be provided by this office, the drainage engineer's office, all of the details, but it will put you all in a position to establish parameters around structuring a loan program in lines of Commissioner Boyce's question around going beyond the statutory amount of 15 years, which the statute sets out. I believe the prosecutor's office would look at whether you all could establish a loan repayment program for residents outside of that period. And I think definitely Assistant Prosecutor Hummer gave us a definite answer that you all have the statutory authority to make investments towards this project. Now I'm going to get to my question that's been burning in my head is, have you all made a determination of the maximum amount that each homeowner would be assessed under this $2.1 million scenario? Because I heard a number that would be excessive, I would view excessive over a 15-year period. I believe $56,000 is the number I heard, which would be excessive by any standard.
Administrator Wilson, Nick Soulis, Government Affairs Liaison. The answer is no. That number has not yet been determined. That number cannot be determined since we have not gone through the final design phase, nor have we run the total cost through the calculation to determine the size of the property within the watershed, the uses of the land that the property is devoted to. All of those factor in, and the location of where you are within the watershed. So that it's a very complicated formula, and we're happy to explain it. However, having said that final number we're far too premature at this point to assign any potential cost to any property at this point.
Okay, and that's what I wanted to know, whether residents knew of what a potential number would be. Because that's going to go into the commissioner's decision process, of course. They spend and invest millions each year dealing with a housing affordability problem. And I surely don't think they're going to vote on a policy that will displace people from their homes.
Zero chance.
Understood.
Thank you. Thank you, President.
Commissioners, at this point, Abby has a few more slides to present. However, in the interest of time, we're happy to allow, there are certainly more residents here. And we will note that the report, you've got an exhibit packet in front of you. The report, the presentation, the PowerPoint slides, as well as a map are included in the packet, and those are part of the record. So we feel comfortable that that is included, so we can allow some residents to testify as well.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Okay, and first we'll have Curtis Hughes. Go ahead, Mr. Hughes. Please state your name and your address.
My name's Curtis Hughes, 5550 London Groveport Road. Hello, Commissioners. My house is one of the homes that are shown on the slideshow where the water is going over the driveway, so I do feel an impact of that. With the last conversation, you guys have addressed one of my major concerns. As we're here trying to figure out pros and cons and how this impacts us as homeowners, it's very difficult with the very minimal details that we've been given. So my concern is, what is the work scope? How does it impact us? What is our cost? I think it's not responsible to proceed without getting that information. So a lot of this does address that. With that in mind, I was under the impression that if we did proceed, that the homeowners would start absorbing this cost. Am I able to ask if there would be any additional costs if we proceed with the planning and design at this point?
If I may, Mr. Hughes, and to the board, Madam President. The question is, if any of the property owners will incur any cost, and the answer is, it does depend. If we do go forward with design, if the commissioners move to go forward with the design phase, at the end, the county will incur some design costs associated with the plans in preparation of the plans. At that point, if the board elects not to go forward at the final hearing, as we've talked about, for whatever the reason, the county has the option, not the obligation, to impose or assess some of those design costs on the property owners. State law provides for that. That's an issue we have not yet faced. That's not an issue that we've had a discussion about as to the pros and cons. However, state law does provide the county could either absorb those costs, or the county could impose some or all of those design costs on the property owners.
Well, how much are they? What is it?
It's tough to say. I would imagine.
But in the past,
Roughly.
have we ever assessed that to the property owners?
No, we've not faced that situation.
Okay.
We have not faced that situation. The answer is no.
Okay.
But because we haven't faced that situation before.
But what, you have an estimate of how much, what did that cost? Just, even just rough, I'm just curious, is it $10 or $1 million?
That's a fair question. We were estimating approximately $100,000 plus or minus, but that's a guess.
So that's not
Good
going
guess
to
as
impact the real issue at hand here, which is this overall assessment amount. So it's not enough to do it, even if we picked up that cost, you know. It's not enough to move the needle.
Okay.
No, I was a question, but yeah.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, it was a question, but yeah, I wasn't telling you that.
But if we decide not to move forward, why would we assess the residents then?
That's the policy question that the board and that's, we're happy to have that conversation as to whether or not to assess folks for a project that doesn't go forward.
Definitely not.
I mean, it's not before us now, so, yeah, but, yeah.
Okay.
What?
So it is still a little concerning because we still have so many unknowns. This is a big project with, the presentation is very visual but minimal scope of work, what's involved, how it's going to impact our property, how it's going to affect our buildings. There's just still so many unknowns going into this. Plus the financial burden, obviously we've heard from several other residents. It's not only people that are on fixed incomes and retired, but also, you know, people like myself that have lived there for 22 years. I've worked really hard to pay my house. I have 2 children that are right around the corner to go to college. So these are additional expenses to absorb. 15 years of $50,000 to $60,000 is going to impact that opportunity for me. So those were some of the concerns that I had. You know, with us looking to get more information, I don't think there's a whole lot more that I need to go over at this time, but, you know, my ending was just to at least consider postponing this until we can look at more plans and get a bigger idea of what this is entailing and what true pros and cons are.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Next, we will hear from Mr. Jeff Anderson.
Good morning.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Anderson. I live at 5774 London Groveport Road. I'm clear at the far west end. I'm on the road at my house is about like a sledding hill, right downhill, great big ravine. If you take a look, I'm not asking you, this is the copy in the packet here. London Groveport Road, I've lived there for 22 years. I've traveled on that for about 60 years because my family farmed over in Madison County and commuted across there every day since about 1964 never seen water up over top of London Grove Court Road. So there's water in the front yards of, here on the east, the east end and the west end. The high point of this property is right about in the middle. That road slopes to the west from the middle, it slopes to the east from the middle. Mr. Curtis and I both live down here at the far west end, and at that place is where this ditch, it doesn't have water in it except when it floods and rains. The ditch then runs and hits the road, hits the ditch anyway, it runs along the road, beginning at Mr. Curtis's property, pretty much, right here at the far west end. That ditch is like, at his place, is about 8 foot deep, about 30, 40 foot wide, and there's just no reason why the water couldn't flow. By my property here at the very end, it's 12 foot deep, and it's like 40 foot wide, and you could park a couple semis down there and never see the tops of them, because it's just a great big ravine, and it runs right downhill to Hell Branch. So what's caused trouble for Mr. Curtis and these other folks here is that someone is allowed, the developers or homeowners, to make many dams across that big wide open ditch. I mean, it's farther from here to that doorway there. And they let them put culverts in about that big, so that, of course, the water can't get through. And it's like, you know, this ditch is bigger than Hell Branch itself, but they put about 8, 10 dams across there. I did hear at one of the public meetings, it may have been Mr. Curtis, that he tried very seriously to get permission to put a bigger culvert under there. And he was told by somebody, it was in the Darby watershed, and you couldn't do that. So I don't know what the problem is here. The other, that's figure 3, that on your report there that they showed. That's his yard and his driveway. You know, I've lived there 22 years. I knew the previous owner and visited often for about 12 years on my property. And, you know, there's never been a problem there. They put 2 3-foot culverts underneath my driveway so that it wouldn't wash out, and that solved that problem 30 years ago. The other part of it on the east side here, and this would be clear at the far you know, right of your drawing here, that's where that figure 1 document is. I don't know, I think that these properties must drain out through a field somewhere. I don't know. They don't drain on the road because the road slopes downhill away from the outlet. It slopes toward Pleasant Corners there to the east. And so I've not been able to find out from the engineer's office, and maybe I didn't make a good job of trying to find out. I mean, I tried. But whether they're going to improve the roadway and let that water just flow in the ditch along the road, it's just a temporary thing. But it can't, because the road goes uphill, the land, and the road goes uphill just a little bit there. And a lot of that's been also filled in by driveways and culverts that are all plugged up, and you can't even see they're there. They must be down there somewhere. So the water can't flow uphill. I guess they're wanting to drain this figure 1 and 2, the one here on the far east side, somehow back through a field and out this way, when the roadway is certainly would be possible to do that. I'm not sure why they can't just run it up to the ditch and deepen the ditch a little bit. I also have a question then, I don't know what underground stuff's gonna be done. On the other side of the road, that's agricultural land pretty much. I noticed in recent times a farmer had great big bundles of field tile. He's gonna, you know, tile all his field, he's gonna run it somewhere. I'm not sure whether he's gonna run it to the ditch as part of this watershed or somewhere else. But I don't know whether this plan is going to somehow be accepting all his farm water that he's going to have on this new tiling system in there. So I've got that question about one side of the road and the other. I don't know of any culvert underneath that road at all. It talks about a culvert as part of the cost. Again, I've never seen any culvert there where anything flows underneath London Groveport Road at all. So I've not been able to find out what the plan is. They must have a good plan because they got, you know, a certain exact amount they think it will cost, whether they're going to open up along the road, which seems simple to me, or somehow replace a farmer's field tile. Evidently, there's an old clay tile under there. It's been there for many years. And I think they want to replace all of that, and that really benefits that farmer and doesn't benefit all these other homeowners across here. I grew up near Caiusville in Madison County, very flat. Kokomo soil, doesn't percolate well, and if the tiles don't work, you can't farm. I mean, you have to fix them. And there's tiles everywhere. There was a tile right close to my house out there that you could drive a car in. I mean, it was like about 8 foot across, and it ran over to Deer Creek. The point is you have to have that. Somebody, the farmer put this in here. Now, I don't know that it's fair to have all the homeowners pay, so the farmer can have a better drained field. If he wants to replace his own tile on his own property, I think that might be an option, or at least I'd like to know whether that's one of the options. So that's really what I've got to say. When I signed up, I said I don't know whether I agree or disagree, because I've not been able to find out again whether
they're going to simply could make this ditch deeper and let the water just flow right downhill, because again, from the middle, it flows this way toward Pleasant Corners, this way. And I also didn't know whether or not, the development's coming out there. There's a lot of development and a lot of grounds being sold, and a lot of big development. It's just, 3 miles away, up the 3C Highway and 665. Whether this is somehow going to tie into that, and maybe could be that there's going to be an oversized, development, so that looking toward the future for some developer to take advantage of. I just don't know. So that's really what I've got to say. But I've been there for many years, and the water's never been over that road. There's plenty of other roads out there where water flows over and blocks them from time to time, but never there. And it's just interesting that it flows this way and this way. They want to take that water and all put it, I think, right in front of my house. I don't know. I'm not sure whether, I've got a deep ravine and my drive goes across it. And I've never overtopped it since I've been there, but I don't know whether there's going to be more flow or not. So
Thank you,
that's
Mr.
sort of my
Anderson.
comment. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Madam President and Commissioners, we do, I believe, have 2 speakers left. Mr. Adams here in person and Ms. Myers online. So we'll go ahead and begin in person, and then Kathy Myers, if you could be ready to speak online next. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name's John Adams. I work for the Ohio Department of Transportation. I'm the District 6 hydraulic engineer. Our district covers 8 counties, Franklin County being one of them. I've met with a few residents along 665. The ODOT does have probably 60, 80-year-old clay tile that runs longitudinally along 605, drains to this privately owned 12-inch tile that hasn't been maintained. So the ditches hold water for long periods of time. I've heard from residents their septic issues are backing up. ODOT's limited within the right-of-way and do not have a mechanism or means to replace that 12-inch, so I'm just here to support the petition. Drain the 665 ditches. Not only makes it safer for the traveling public, but it improves the livelihoods of the residents with the backed up septic. So,
Thank you, Mr.
if you have any
Adams.
questions, I'm happy to answer. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Ms. Myers, you may begin.
Thank you. So my name is Kathy Myers. I live at 5306 London Groveport Road. My husband and I have 15 acres, so we have 3 parcels. And I feel it's important to mention that I have a degree in agricultural economics and urban development. So I have knowledge and have studied and worked with communities in drainage issues, in issues that deal with agriculture, you name it. So I know the importance of drainage issues. However, I'm also looking at this project from a different perspective as a resident. Which is unique for me. And I know that when you look at projects, as you guys have talked about during your discussion here, you have to look at what is the burden on the residents. And even though they have a high number, they don't really know the number. As somebody that owns 15 acres that is in the middle of this watershed, that number for a small red brick ranch is going to be huge. We are talking, and I know they're just throwing out numbers, but we're talking probably $150,000. We bought this property almost 30 years ago as farmland. When we bought this property, we saw that when there was a rainstorm, that there was some drainage issues. So we decided to build the house on the highest part back from the road. We installed our own tiling because I grew up in a farming neighborhood. I grew up as a farmer's daughter and knew, okay, we need to help the water drain some. We were told as part of our property agreement when we bought it from the farmer, we could not disrupt that tile that is in the back of our property. It goes through our paddock. So we always make sure to not disrupt that. We have spent gobs of money putting drainage in our land to drain it away. So yeah, when one of those pictures that you were shown is my house with a big pond in front of its in front of the road. It's not on the road. It's not even on my driveway. But when we get a huge rain, it ponds for a moment. Within a day or two, it drains. It's much better than it ever used to be because of the money we have spent to get it to drain out of there. So I apologize. So I look at this from 2 different perspectives. As residents, it is our responsibility to care for our land. I get that there are some drainage issues, but none of it has, as one of the other residents said, has ever gone out on the road. And we have clay soil. Clay soil never drains well. So what happens is this water, when we get a big rainstorm, as anywhere in the county, it's going to pond for a minute and then it will drain. This project, even if you go to the next step, we could incur some of this cost. We are comfortable, but we are not rich. And nobody in Pleasant Township is not, as somebody said, Powell or Dublin. We do not have mansions out here. We are in a farm country area. We're in a rural area. And so I kind of look at this as I know the petition was raised by ODOT, and I know that there are some flooding issues, but it's because those residents have not invested anything to help drain some of that land. There are some other issues, don't get me wrong, but I don't feel like this project is something that, as my background, the cost outweigh the benefit. The cost is so huge on this project that there is no way that $150,000 for a landowner, that makes sense over the next 15 years. And that's kind of what you're looking at when you're looking at somebody who owns 15 acres. And again, we bought this 30 years ago. So it's not like we're rich or anything, but when you look at the fact that we are in the middle of this watershed and we will have to probably spend, we will be impacted the most as far as like, oh, well, the algorithm will say, well, you have 15 acres. So you will have, if we're just doing 50,000 per resident, we have 15 acres of that. It could be 150,000 and up. So that is why I am going on record and asking you guys not even to take it to the next step. There's too many unknowns. And I just don't feel like this is the best situation. I appreciate the engineer's office. I appreciate ODOT trying to help the residents. I just don't feel like in this case, the costs outweigh the benefit for the residents of Pleasant Township. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers, and I'll turn it over back to you, Madam President.
Oh, you see you getting up, you midway up.
Not to belabor this, Commissioner. All I wanted to do was address the resolution before you today.
Right.
Because we did not want to be presumptuous and assume that we knew what the board would want to do at the close of this hearing. So the resolution that you have before you today merely closes the hearing. We will come back to you next week based on your desires with a resolution to move forward with design or with a resolution dismissing. So based on your discussions today, certainly you have to take a vote on closing the hearing now on this resolution pending before you. But based on your indications, we will present a resolution next week to move forward or dismiss.
Right. Go ahead.
No, please, I'm sorry. I have a question when you get finished.
So, again, today is just to close the public hearing. And then next week you'll have a resolution that would come before the board for us to decide if we were going to move forward. And in moving forward off of that resolution would give us more knowns,
Correct.
have a more detailed cost-benefit analysis,
Correct.
and to determine the feasibility of advancing forward with the proposed project.
That is correct, Madam
Okay,
President.
so I just want to be clear for all of the residents that today, as you stated, we are just closing the public hearing, because by law we have to have that. And then we'll have a vote on the next week based on the resolution that comes forward, okay?
Correct.
All right.
Madam President, if I may, I believe it was the representative from ODOT mentioned very briefly some of the safety issues along the, I think it was 668. 665, I'm sorry, thank you so much. Can you just talk about that a little bit? So beyond the private property that exists, talk more about the right-of-way safety issues that present a concern with the water when this overflow happens, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Commissioner. Currently, I do not believe 665 overtops. Both ditches along 665 hold water. Could be up to 2-3 feet deep, so it's just the case of a car goes off the road. That's the safety issue we're talking about. There's no overtopping or hydroplaning incidents that I'm aware of. It's just the ditches hold water for long periods of time, backup septics for the local homeowners, and it causes that potential safety issue.
I see. Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
One of the other issues, Commissioner Boyce, you're right about 665, or it's a good question. Part of the presentation within your materials is the issue in question about public health, because as these properties are flooding, you know, they all have household sewage treatment systems that lie underneath, and when those get flooded out, that impairs their viability, the length of their service, imposes significant public health risks, as we've addressed in other topics throughout time. Other matters of litigation, if you'll recall, dealing with household sewage treatment systems.
Sure, thank you. All right.
All right. If there are no additional comments or questions, I would like to close this public hearing and have the clerk read the resolution into the record. What? Oh.
Just one last consideration. When I did try to address this myself with the simple plan of just increasing the drain tile that is undersized, I was told this is a protected area. There's been laws passed that this is a Darby watershed, and I had strict instructions that I was not able to change the water flow with the concerns of increasing the volume of water that would be transferred down to Hell Branch. So I wasn't sure if any of this has been considered. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
The engineer's office is extraordinarily familiar with the Darby watershed and all the.
All right, please.
Everything.
Hi, this is Mr. Lee again.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lee, Commissioner O'Grady was giving comment.
I was just stating that the engineer's office is very familiar with the Darby watershed and all the particulars of the Darby Accord and all that's been passed there. So, you know, they're very, very familiar with all of that. So.
Mr. Lee, do you have a clarifying question at this time?
Yes. On this resolution they're going to present next week, are we going to be able to be in attendance here to hear that resolution so that we can comment on it? Or are we going to be excluded from this information?
Mr. Lee, you are welcome to join. All our hearings are for the public to attend should you wish, and there are speaker slips that you may submit, and I am certainly happy to talk with you offline about that process. But you are certainly welcome to join along with any other residents.
And this, when will this hearing be?
It's not a hearing. It will be a proposed resolution that we'll put before the board next week. But I'm happy to talk to you offline about that. Trustee Hunter does have my information.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So, again, Madam Clerk, I would like to close this public hearing and have the clerk read the resolution into the record.
Resolution number 90922, resolution considering the initial feasibility of the improvement of the ODOT Argabright Drainage Improvement, Pleasant Township, Franklin County, Ohio.
Next, we have alcohol, drug, and mental.
Excuse me, Madam
Oh,
President, we
sorry.
do need to, a motion
Oh,
to.
sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I was gearing up. I was
Sorry.
getting ready for it, and if there are no further comments or questions, move for adoption of 0909-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Resolution number 90922 has been adopted.
Sorry about that. Next, Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Board.
Resolution number 91022, resolution authorizing a modification to the original contract agreement with Elford Incorporated to provide construction manager at-risk services, including pre-construction services associated with the planning, design, and new construction of a mental health and addiction crisis center at an increase in the amount of the contract not to exceed $168,695.
Good morning, Commissioners. Darla Reardon, Director, Public Facilities Management. In October of 2021, Elford Inc. was awarded a contract agreement to provide construction manager at risk services related to pre-construction stage activities associated with the construction of a new mental health and addiction crisis center to be operated by Adam H. This resolution authorizes a contract modification with Elford Inc. to provide additional pre-construction services for the new crisis center project. On next week's agenda, we will present the first guaranteed maximum price amendment for construction services for this project. Jonathan Thomas, Adam H. Chief Operating Officer, and Randy Duncan, Vice President of Elford Inc., are also here today and available should you have any questions. Pending any questions, we respectfully request your approval of this action. Thank you.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 910-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Resolution number 91022 has been adopted.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Have a great one. Next, Franklin County Data Center.
Resolution number 91122, resolution authorizing the county administrator to enter into an agreement with Abnormal Security Corporation for the evaluation of technology security software.
Good morning, Commissioners. Julie Lust with the Franklin County Data Center. In addition to providing a centralized technology network that supports over 200 applications and 500 users, the data center provides enterprise communication and collaboration solutions such as phone, email, and electronic meetings. An important part of this solution is security. We have determined that the current email security technology should be upgraded with a more comprehensive solution, and this resolution will authorize an evaluation of one such product for 30 days at no charge to the county. Pending any questions, I respectfully request your approval of this resolution.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 911-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Resolution number 91122 has been adopted.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Next, Veteran Services.
Resolution number 91222, resolution authorizing a transfer of general fund appropriations for the support of the immediate financial assistance program.
Good morning, Commissioners. Buck Bramless, Executive Director of the Veterans Service Commission. A very quick aside before I start. The second greatest rivalry game is this Saturday. Navy currently leads that 62-53.
Go Army.
Go Nate? What? I'm sorry.
For over 20 years, I bet
I'm sorry. Army gonna have some mean-looking uniforms. I saw
do.
the picture. They're gonna look the part.
Well,
That doesn't
we're
look
a
good.
handsome group. We are a handsome group. For over 20 years, I bet my
feel
dad, a
attacked.
Navy veteran, on the game. Dad's passed now, but that $1 bet, is available if there happens to be a Navy veteran that wants to take it on. So I just throw that out there as I turn to the important business of the day. We do ask your consideration of this money transfer as we continue to provide financial assistance for food. Our financial assistance applications are up this year and up over 20% over the last 4 months. And inside those financial assistance applications, food assistance is up almost 40%. And this is compared to a 5-year average. A significant portion of this money goes to veterans that are at or below 150% or 185% of the poverty level and are in fixed incomes, whether it be Social Security disability income or non-service connected pensions. So we ask for your consideration of this money transfer.
If there are no comments or questions, Commissioner, anything you got to say about the Navy?
I will not set precedent at this moment, taking bets, but we will talk offline.
Yes, ma'am.
In my family, it's six Army vets, 2 Navy vets, 1 Air Force vet, and 2 Coast Guard vets. So,
Oh, wow.
and my dad's an Army vet, so Army all the way.
Oh, so my dad is an Army vet, my brother is an Army vet, and I am the only one who obviously had sense to go into the Navy. And I was supportive for my children as one is considering going into the military, so, yeah.
Well, since we're doing that, but my entire family is Marines.
So
Everyone
Navy,
is-
so Navy, so Navy.
Yeah, no, Marines, just
They're
Marines.
Navy. For those who do not know, that the Marines are under the Navy. So, and that's why we give them a ride everywhere they need to go.
Commissioner Boyce, the Navy is the transportation branch of the Marine Corps. So.
You know, hey, everybody needs drivers.
That's
you know,
right.
Like, you know, look. It should be noted, though. You know, all of the armed services. I mean, they're all tremendous and have created our way of life, and we're all grateful for their service. But I will say, my family is all Marines because it is Marines is a special force all around. It's the one branch that it is special forces, and so.
And I should
If I were gonna go, that's
before
where I
we're
would
done, can I bring up something here that
Yes, sir.
I've spoken
Since you're on this.
with Administrator Wilson about this, but I'd like to speak with my colleagues about it if I might in general session. A couple of years ago, Linda Logan and I went to Philadelphia for the Army-Navy game. In hopes that, along with General Farrader was there, some folks, some representatives from Ohio State University and others, in hopes that at one point we may be able to bring the Army-Navy game to Columbus, hosting them here because of our connection with the Franklin County Veterans Memorial Museum and Ohio State University's the SHU because of the we have one of the cathedrals of college football here in Columbus, and so the idea being that when they go back out to bid to host the game, it's only ever been played outside of the East Coast, outside of either Philadelphia or MetLife Stadium, the Meadowlands. It's only ever been played outside of there 4 times in the history of the game. They played it during World War II in Annapolis and at West Point because President Roosevelt didn't want the trains being used for transportation for anything else other than what they need during wartime, and so they hosted them at the 2, and it didn't go so well, so they decided not to do that anymore. And then it was played in Los Angeles at the Coliseum in the 1980s, and it was played in Soldier Field at the opening of Soldier Field in the 1920s. Those are the only times it's been played outside of either in Philadelphia or the Meadowlands. And so when we went, we were received very well. And then the pandemic hit, because we went right in December of 2019. The pandemic hit, the bids all changed, and so our thoughts on when we might actually bid for the game changed. And so I've talked to Linda about it a few times since then. Columbus is still interested in making the bid. Franklin County would be a part of that. And so hopefully we'll get back to it here soon. We were talking about maybe the 2027 game. But, it would be a big lift. We would have to work very hard. It would be very expensive to bring all of the cadets and the midshipmen. I was getting that. The cadets, to bring all of them here, but we thought because of the National Veterans Memorial Museum and their opportunity to play in one of the biggest cathedrals in all of college sports, here, we thought we had a really good opportunity. So,
So that would be great if we could get. I'd be all for that.
Thank you for that history. Yeah,
Sorry.
I would support that. Yeah, I would
President.
love that.
maybe you might, and that's what brought it up.
President Crowley, Commissioner Boyce, Commissioner O'Grady. Yeah, it would be quite an honor, and we were, as Commissioner O'Grady stated, want to partner with the Sports Commission because this is one of those think big, opportunities and the honor to be able to host this game. And there's so many reasons why, being that Ohio has one of the largest population of veterans in the nation.
That's right.
And as Commissioner O'Grady stated, having the National Veterans Memorial and Museum and how historical the SHU is, it's 100-year history, and having the cadets and the midshipmen, did I get that right? Here, Mr. Bramlett, you would know the answer to this question. How many individuals between the two branches are at the game? It's
The majority, like a third of the stadium is taken up by midshipmen.
I want to think, I heard 50,000 maybe?
I can find it. So I'll send you a note, I'll get back to it. I would add some great data. My recollection, when we look at Ohio also, is the second largest Air National Guard in the country, the fifth or sixth largest Army National Guard in the country. Ohio is a very patriotic state, and this is an extremely patriotic and supportive and generous county to its veterans.
Because that's what one of the major financial things that we would take on, and we know it going in, is that the transportation costs of flying everyone in here.
It would be very expensive, but obviously Franklin County, we have a history of investing in sports, and the Board of County Commissioners does, but it would take a big investment by the corporate community as well, because it would be very expensive to get the cadets here and back, because it's also, it's right around finals time for them. And so we would have to pick the right year, and it would be a big lift. Sorry.
Finances and weather, and I think those two can work out.
Yeah, this is one of those things that, Central Ohio, I mean, we do different things here. We do big things here, and I like the idea. I think that would be awesome, and it would be something that would be worthy of that kind of investment. And given the museum that we have too, I mean, we should be all in if we're going to be, and so.
It was a tremendous experience, man, going to that game. We had a great time.
I will just say, the Marines had a football team. I mean.
It's the Navy.
We have a
Navy.
special guest here.
Oh, my.
Hi, I'm sorry, Barb. Hi, but we're in session.
Yes, it's okay.
Yes. I'm sorry.
All right, if there are no comments or questions, further comments or questions, move for adoption of 912-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Resolution number 91222 has been adopted.
Thank you, Commissioners, and to our clerk, I apologize for my misbehavior.
No apology needed.
That was good trouble, bud.
Good trouble. Go Navy. Next up, economic development and planning.
Resolution number 91322, review of petition to annex 19.05 acres more or less from Franklin Township to the City of Columbus, case number ANX-37-22.
Morning, Commissioners. Director James Schimmer from Economic Development and Planning into the exciting world of annexations. Our first annexation is a resolution to consider an expedited annexation of 19.5 acres, more or less from Franklin Township to the City of Columbus. The petition case number is ANX 37-22. The owners are Harmon Avenue LLC. The agent is Jackson B. Reynolds III. The site is located at 1790 Harmon Avenue. The property description is number 140-00289. The total perimeter of the site is approximately 3,669 feet. 76% of that is contiguous to the City of Columbus. The applicant has met all of the statutory requirements outlined in 709.02 of the Ohio Revised Code. The applicant has provided a proof of notification and a timeline, and has provided an ordinance from the City of Columbus identifying services that will be provided once the annexation has been approved, and a statement regarding possible incompatible land uses and zoning buffer. Ordinance number 3104-2022 was passed by the City of Columbus on November 14th of 2022. Recommending, or pending any questions, I would ask for your approval of this annexation this morning.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of a 913-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Resolution number 913-22 has been adopted. Resolution number 914-22, review of petition to annex 2.9 acres, more or less, from Plain Township to the City of Columbus, case number ANX-40-22.
Commissioners, this is a resolution to consider an expedited annexation of 2.9 acres more or less from Plain Township to the City of Columbus. The petition number is ANX 40-22. Owners are Stephen Dunbar and Cindy Ward. The agent is Eric Zartman of Underhill and Hodge LLC. The site is located at 5180 Central College Road. The PID number is 220-00183. The total perimeter of this site is 1,645 feet, approximately 1,425 feet, or 87% of which is contiguous to the City of Columbus. Applicant has met all the statutory requirements outlined in Section 709.022 of the Ohio Revised Code. The applicant has provided a copy of the annexation agreement between Plain Township and the City of Columbus. Pending any questions, I would recommend your approval of this annexation this morning.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 914-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley? Yes. Resolution number 914-22 has been adopted. Resolution number 915-22, review of petition to annex 4.8 acres, more or less, from Plain Township to the City of Columbus, case number ANX-41-22.
Commissioners, this is a resolution to consider an expedited annexation of 4.8 acres, more or less, from Plain Township to the City of Columbus. The petition case number is ANX-41-22. The owners are Alex and Natasha Bamovsky. The agent is Eric Zartman of Underhill and Hodge. The site is located at 5142 Central College Road with a parcel ID number of 220-002-126. Additional information relates to the total perimeter of the site being approximately 1,884 feet, 100% of which is contiguous to the City of Columbus. The applicant has met all statutory requirements outlined in 709.022 of the Ohio Revised Code. The applicant has provided a copy of the annexation agreement between Plain Township and the City of Columbus. Pending any questions, I would ask for your approval of this resolution this morning.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 915-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Resolution number 915-22 has been adopted. Resolution number 916-22, review of petition to annex 9.81 acres, more or less, from Plain Township to the City of Columbus, case number ANX-42-22.
Commissioners, this is a resolution to consider an expedited annexation of 9.81 acres, more or less, from Plain Township to the City of Columbus. The petition case number is ANX-42-22. The owners are Mark M. and Leslie Sowell, Jeff D. and Tina Miller. The agent is David Hodge from Underhill and Hodge LLC. The site is located at 6915 Harlem Road, parcel ID number 220-001-878. The address at 6885 Harlem Road is parcel number ID 220-001-757. The total perimeter of the site is 3,883.6 feet, approximately 1,833.6, or 54.2% of that property is contiguous to the City of Columbus. The applicant has met all the statutory requirements outlined in Section 709.022 of the Ohio Revised Code, and the applicant has provided a copy of the annexation agreement between Plain Township and the City of Columbus. Pending any recommendations, I would ask for your approval of this resolution this morning.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 916-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Resolution number 916-22 has been adopted.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Have a good one. Next up, we have Job and Family Services.
Commissioner? We need to remove this resolution from the table. Is there a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Move to remove Resolution 89322 from the table.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Resolution number 89322 has been removed from the table. Resolution number 89322. Resolution approving a subaward agreement with Partners Achieving Community Transformation for a workforce training program in the amount of $254,234.23.
Good morning, Commissioners. Vivian Turner, Chief Administrator. In partnership with the Ohio State University College of Nursing, PAC will offer the Community Health Worker Training Program, which recruits individuals with a high school or GED equivalent, with a high school diploma or GED equivalent, to prepare them for employment and additional training in the healthcare industry. The Community Health Worker Training Program is a 14-week program that includes 104 hours of virtual and in-person classroom instruction, followed by 130 hours of hands-on experience in the community. Participants who successfully complete the required class and the clinical hours are eligible to earn a certification as a community health worker from the Ohio Board of Nursing. Over the last period, 55 students completed the program, with over 50% placed in employment earning wages of at least $21 an hour. Over the next contract period, PAC plans to enroll another 75 students. This resolution supports goal number 3 of our Rise Together blueprint, and pending any questions, we request your approval of the resolution.
Move approval of, if there's no further comments or questions, I'll move approval of Resolution 89322.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce?
Abstain.
Resolution number 89322 has been adopted with Commissioner Boyce's noted abstention. Resolution number 91722. Resolution approving subaward agreement with Librarians in Columbus Incorporated for a new Community Wellness Navigator Initiative in the amount of $188,742.43.
Commissioners, we are excited to bring this resolution. The Liberian immigrant community in Central Ohio is growing, with more than 6,000 calling Franklin County home. However, like many new American communities, they face obstacles to thriving, factors all across the social determinants of health, including unsafe housing, unemployment or underemployment, poor health outcomes, and social isolation. Librarians in Columbus Incorporated developed their Community Wellness Navigator program to help bridge the gaps in service. The program seeks to link members of the Liberian American community, as well as Broward East Side residents, with services from the HHS and nonprofit agencies across the county. Their assessment and referral process will direct and connect residents to services ranging from housing, childcare, and workforce readiness to financial literacy, behavioral health, and trauma support services. During this pilot, Librarians in Columbus will seek to reach an estimated 150 tenant-eligible residents. This resolution aligns with goal number 9 of our Rise Together blueprint, and pending any questions, we request your approval of this resolution.
If there are no comments or questions, I will move approval of Resolution 91722.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Resolution number 91722 has been adopted. Resolution number 91822. Resolution approving a subaward agreement with the City of Columbus for the Celebrate One infant mortality interventions, education, and outreach strategies in the amount of $800,000.
Celebrate One is the City of Columbus and Franklin County's collective impact initiative to reduce the high infant mortality rate. Their vision is for every infant in Franklin County regardless of zip code or family income, to celebrate his or her first birthday. Their efforts have reduced infant deaths in priority areas across the county from 9.6 to 6.7 deaths per 1,000 live births through 2020. However, the pandemic has exacerbated many of the factors that have been driving the rate down. And in 2021, we saw the rate spike again to 8.1%. This funding will support Celebrate One to expand messaging and engagement with the residents it serves. They will broaden their communication strategy to support behavioral change on topics such as prenatal care, prematurity awareness, substance use and abuse, as well as sudden infant death syndrome. Celebrate One will widen its Crib for Kids campaign to distribute over 675 survival kits, to equip parents and caregivers with everything needed to practice safe sleep, and train 1,000 residents to serve as safe sleep ambassadors to educate families. Additionally, Celebrate One will continue to sponsor the Teen Reproductive Health Education Program, which provides health education to middle school students throughout the Columbus City Schools. This resolution supports goal number 8 of our Rise Together Blueprint, and pending any questions, we request your approval.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 918-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Resolution number 918-22 has been adopted. Resolution number 919-22, resolution approving a subaward agreement with TechCore Ohio for youth technology programming in the amount of $496,000.
Commissioners, Computing Career Corps is a 15-week program designed for high school students to increase participant knowledge of and skills in the computer science field. The program introduces students to a variety of technology career pathways, including programming, software engineering, robotics, or app development, 3D printing, and much more. The students earn badges for mastering different skills, equipping them with the tools to compete in the 21st century technology-based economy, and making them more attractive to college admission counselors and potential employers. There is also a paid summer work experience component for students who successfully complete the CCC program during the academic year. Students in the summer program will develop skills in web development, cybersecurity, and data analytics. Youth can complete up to 120 hours of training and earn an hourly wage of $12. This year, TechCore will target approximately 100 TANF-eligible youth ages 14 to 16. This resolution supports goal number 11 of our Rise Together Blueprint, and pending any questions, we request your approval of this resolution.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 919-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Resolution number 919-22 has been adopted. Resolution number 920-22, resolution approving a subaward agreement with the Columbus Urban League for the Journey to Wealth program in the amount of $150,000.
The Journey to Wealth program was launched last year and grew out of the Urban League's 700 Credit Score initiative, which we were a long-term funder. Whereas the 700 Credit Score initiative focused on improving credit scores, Journey to Wealth takes it a step further, seeking to build and sustain economic mobility by offering financial education, services that foster the value of financial worth, wellness, and wealth. The Journey to Wealth program supports Franklin County residents who are at or below the poverty level by providing financial planning, credit counseling, debt management, and financially centered cognitive behavioral coaching. Using a financial resiliency curriculum, as well as individual and small group coaching sessions, the Columbus Urban League will support 100 Franklin County residents. This resolution also aligns with our Rise Together Blueprint, goal number 9. And pending any questions, we request your approval of this resolution.
I'll just say I've heard nothing but really good things about this program. I'm really excited to make this investment. You know, I work in finance, and I don't understand how the credit score works. I don't, you know, so getting folks to understand the basic elements of how it works is definitely a component of wealth building for families and individuals. And so I'm really excited about it. I'm going to ask my staff to set me up with Urban League too, just because I want to learn more about what they do. We're looking at some different things here around for the county, and I think this could be something that we could learn more about. So I'm very enthusiastically supportive of Resolution 920-22.
Absolutely, Commissioner. Thank you.
Did I move for passage? Oh, I'm sorry. Move for passage of 920-22.
Second?
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Resolution number 920-22 is adopted. Resolution number 921-22, resolution approving a contract with Arbor ENT LLC doing business as Equus Workforce Solutions for the Ohio Works First Work Activity Services and Management in the amount of $2,923,200.02.
Commissioners, our last resolution this morning supports our adults in the Ohio Works First program. With few exceptions, these participants must participate in specified work activities as a condition of receiving their cash benefits. We partner with Equus after a competitive bid process to assist with the management of the OWF work activities, as well as the components of our Achieve More and Prosper comprehensive case management program, which targets work-required young adults. The services Equus and its subcontractors, which include Goodwill Columbus, Jewish Family Services, and the National Center for Urban Solutions, the services they provide include identifying and securing work experience sites, monitoring and reporting weekly work participation hours, case management and supportive services, and providing various workforce development services, including employment placement and retention services and efforts that advance self-sufficiency. During this new contract period, Equus is estimated to serve just over 600 OWF residents. This resolution also supports goal number 4 of a Rise Together blueprint, and pending any questions, we request your approval.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 921-22.
Second?
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Resolution number 921-22 has been adopted.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Have a good one. Next up, Justice Policy and Programs.
Resolution number 922-22, resolution authorizing 3 contract modification of subawards issued to the Research Institute at Nationwide Children's Hospital doing business as Abigail Wexner Research Institute, University of Cincinnati, and Healing Broken Circles through the FY 2019 Second Chance Act addressing needs of incarcerated parents and their minor children grant award from the U.S. Department of Justice in the amount of $76,370.61.
Good morning, Commissioners. Melissa with the Franklin County Office of Justice Policy and Programs. Commissioners, the Office of Justice Policy and Programs was awarded a Second Chance Act grant in 2019 to support the needs of children of incarcerated fathers detained in the Franklin County Jail, Alvis Halfway Homes, and/or the community-based correctional facility. The program was scheduled to terminate in September of 2022. However, due to delays arising from the pandemic, a no-cost extension was granted by the Bureau of Justice Assistance through September of 2023. In alignment with this extension, we are requesting contract modifications with 3 of our key partners, the Research Institute at Nationwide Children's Hospital, University of Cincinnati, and Healing Broken Circles. Contract modifications will support continuation of and expansion of some services, including linkages to care, transitional reentry services, and fatherhood programming. This resolution supports goal number 12 of the Rise Together Blueprint, which plans to increase the number of children in safe and stable homes. Pending any questions, we respectfully request your approval of these 3 contract modifications.
think I need to abstain on this one. I'm gonna just do abstain.
All right.
Because I don't know, and I just think I haven't had a chance. I
There
just
are
saw
no-
something.
If there are no comments or questions, I'll move approval of Resolution 92222.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce?
Abstain.
Resolution number 922-22 has been adopted with Commissioner Boyce's noted abstention.
Thanks, Commissioners.
Thank you. Have a good one. Next up, sanitary engineers.
Resolution number 92322, resolution authorizing a second modification to the contract with Amic Consulting Group LLC for funding acquisition services, an increase of $261,771.49.
Good morning, Commissioners. Stephen Renner with the Sanitary Engineering Department. Commissioners, we have ongoing projects and thus a continued need for consulting and project management regarding our funding acquisition via our state loans and grants from the state of Ohio, and also for continuous improvement of our water and sewer capital assets. This second contract modification provides services for the preparation of various nominations and facility plans for our capital improvement projects currently in various stages of implementation. Those are notably the North Hague Avenue, Ferris Avenue, and the Gladys Ina sanitary sewer projects. This contract also allows for the acceptance and review of financial assistance applications to help residents find ways to afford the costs during the connection phase of our sanitary sewer projects. And lastly, this contract will also allow for the continuation of consulting services for management, including implementation of various financial assistance programs proceeds in order to ensure that we're compliant with our loans and grants. We respectfully request that you pass this second contract modification.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 923-22.
Second.
Moved and seconded, voting. Commissioner Boyce?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley?
Yes.
Resolution number 92322 has been adopted.
Commissioners, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have the Board of Commissioners. Resolution number 92422. Resolution authorizing appropriation adjustments for the county's wellness incentive and public transportation benefits program, termination payouts, workers' compensation expenses, and to offset budgeted vacancy reductions.
Good morning, Commissioners. Zach Telerik with the Office of Management and Budget. This first resolution is our annual review of payroll expenditures to ensure that agencies are able to meet their payroll obligations prior to the end of this year. This year's resolution includes $6,025,000 in transfers within the general fund, $1,180,000 in transfers for the non-general funds, and supplemental appropriations of $456,000 in various non-general funds. Pending any questions, would ask for your approval of this resolution.
I need a second. Can you give me 1 second?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got it. Oh, wait a minute, I don't have all of them.
I know, that's why I'm here.
Oh.
It's a mess up on the
Got you. Thank you.
Okay.
So we'll need a motion to move for 92422, Commissioner?
Move for adoption of 924-22.
Second?
Moved and seconded voting, Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady,
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley.
Yes.
Resolution number 92422 has been adopted. Resolution number 92522, resolution authorizing an application to the Franklin County Court of Common Pleas for employment of Bricker and Eckler and a contract to perform services associated with arbitrage, rebate, and yield restriction compliance, and to serve as bond counsel and provide advice in public finance and economic development matters as needed.
Commissioners, this resolution and the next two that will be before you are related to additional legal services that will be required for the county in 2023. We've worked with Janine Hummer in the prosecuting attorney's office to work through the process. This would authorize the court order as required by Section 305.14 of the revised code, and then authorize the county administrator to enter into the contract for this resolution in the case of Bricker and Eckler. The contract is anticipated to be $10,000 for the arbitrage compliance. That's part of the IRS regulations for tax-exempt financing, and $55,000 for economic development matters. Pending any questions, would ask for approval of this resolution.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 925-22.
Second?
Moved and seconded voting, Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady,
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley.
Yes.
Resolution number 92522 has been adopted. Resolution number 92622, resolution authorizing an application to the Franklin County Court of Common Pleas for employment of Frost Brown Todd and a contract to serve as bond counsel and provide advice in public finance, economic development, and zoning matters.
Commissioners, again, with this resolution, the anticipation would be up to $15,000 for post-issuance compliance for services provided by Frost Brown Todd, and $50,000 for economic development matters. Pending any questions, would ask for your approval of this resolution.
If there are no comments or questions, move for adoption of 926-22.
Second?
Moved and seconded voting, Commissioner Boyce,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Grady,
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley.
Yes.
Resolution number 92622 has been adopted. Resolution number 92722, resolution authorizing an application to the Franklin County Court of Common Pleas for employment of Ice Miller and a contract to serve as legal counsel regarding labor relations matters.
Commissioners, this would be for services related to collective bargaining agreements and workers' compensation claims. The estimated amount of the contract will be $280,000. Pending any questions, would ask for your approval of this resolution.
Move approval of resolution 92722.
Second.
Moved and seconded voting, Commissioner O'Grady,
Yes.
Commissioner Crawley,
Yes.
Commissioner Boyce.
Abstain.
Resolution number 92722 has been adopted with Commissioner Boyce's noted abstention.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any generalizations?
We do not today.
Are there any members of the media in person or online that has any comments or questions? Hearing and seeing none, Madam Clerk, I will pass it back to you to make an announcement.
Thank you, Madam President. This is going to be the conclusion of our general session meeting, and for those online for the upcoming final hearing of the Tri-County Cook Ditch petition, do hang tight. We're going to take a brief 10-minute break to get set up, and then we will begin.